The following is brought to you by the RealAgriculture.com mobile app. Go to RealAgriculture.com/mobile app for more information on the Android, BlackBerry, iPhone, and iPad version.
All right, John, we're here at Grain World 13. We've been through a morning session on oilseeds. You had the grand task of covering flax. And some interesting things, but flax certainly had a lot of dings against it in the past couple of years. Tell us a bit about how this year looks for flax.
Yeah, certainly. If we look at the flax market over the last number of years, I mean, when Triffid was discovered in 2009, it was just a monumental change in terms of the dynamics and the environment of that industry. And so, since that time, we've had exports to Europe, which had been overwhelmingly our biggest customer of flax, drop right off to where it was almost nothing last year. China stepped in and increased their volumes a fair bit, but certainly from an overall perspective, we're looking at a sizable drop in production, about half of what we normally would have had historically, but demand's a lot lower as well. And so, as we look ahead here to 2013, I mean, our forecast is we're going to see acres up a little bit, approximately 12% from last year, which from percentage terms is not inconsequential, but also off of a very low base. So we are looking for a little bit of an increase in production. Maybe potentially, we could see some demand improvement here a little bit going forward, possibly. But a big question mark is so in the current year we've seen some rebound off of a very low level, but some modest rebound in exports into Europe for flax, partially because the Black Sea region had a smaller crop last year. If we aren't able to kind of maintain that level of export volume into Europe next year, we're going to have fairly flat or maybe a little bit lower demand. And so, but we are looking for a little bit of a bounce in production. Certainly, the draw west in terms of demand from China has helped, and also we've seen some opportunities pop up, for example, in Western Saskatchewan and Alberta for some new crop contracts shown to growers. Traditionally, an area where we wouldn't see much activity at fairly reasonable levels. So we are looking for a little bit of an increase in acres and a little bit of an increase in production. Another part of it as well is that farmers are looking for, everything that we've been told is farmers are looking for to try and bring some of the rotations back in line a little bit. And there's cases and circumstances where flax might make reasonable sense for some of these growers, and so that'll also contribute to having a bit of an increase in seeded area here in spring.
So, we're still off the sort of traditional or 5-year average, let's say, of flax acres. Do you see this coming back, or have we lost a chunk of acres that just aren't coming back?
Well, it's not impossible that we could see that kind of production come back, but really it's going to be a matter of is the demand going to come back to the extent that we've had historically? And it's not impossible, but I think certainly to try and expect to see the kind of volumes that we've done historically in Europe, that is very difficult to see. We might not be as low as we were last year, for example, indefinitely, but certainly it's hard to paint a scenario where we're going to see that kind of volume moving into Europe on a consistent basis. The big wild card is China, as it is in so many markets. So they take a sizable chunk of volume, but it sort of seems to come in spurts. We do anticipate that demand will continue to grow. I think that's a fairly reasonable assumption. But if you start to have a reasonably steady and stable demand growth to some size, that's where there could be the potential for some increase in production. One of the other positive stories for flax is the human consumption market with the with the health benefits, and that's something that's expected to grow going forward as well. But in something like that, it's not where you get a sudden surge in large volumes, that would have a market impact. It's sort of a slow, steady kind of growth. So if a person projected ahead and you looked at maybe regaining some market share into Europe, even if it isn't even close to what we had historically, if we get steady demand growth into China and an ongoing increase in human consumption, I mean, it's not out of the question that eventually we could see the market need those acres in a way that maybe wasn't far off what we had historically, but I think the demand's got to come first. I don't think it's a matter of the market's going to tell farmers to grow a whole bunch of it in the hope of the demand coming. I think it's more where that demand is going to have to come first and really send that signal to growers and pull those acres in. And I'm not sure that it's going to be any time in the next few years when we see that kind of an increase.
Okay, thanks so much, John.
Okay, no problem.